X-Files We Watch podcast. I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And I think we're bereft of news.
Yep.
Well, it's an odd time for the X-Files. Nothing's really happening.
Yeah, and we haven't really had many updates about the next File Fest either. I've been keeping an eye on those too.
Yeah, and the last big news we had was there was a new book. And that was a few months ago.
July.
I
still haven't got around to reading it either. It's on my pile.
If we have no news, I suppose we'll have to talk about Greek philosophy.
Oh, you know that's my favourite topic.
We, of course, are talking about Empedocles. Directed by Barry K. Thomas, written by Greg Walker, and first broadcast on 22nd of April 2001. So, one of the names in this guest cast I kind of noted at the time and thought, really? And then forgot about entirely. But yeah, it's exactly what I thought it was.
Okay.
But first, we have Ron Canada, who played Franklin Potter. He was in Honey, I Blew Up the Kid.
Who is Franklin Potter?
I can't remember.
Fair
We'll find
enough.
out. He was in Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. Home Alone 2. National Treasure. You saw it literally last week. The Empty Man.
Oh, that was pretty good.
He's also been in Cheers, Star Trek Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, and Babylon 5. And Frasier, and The Office. The American one.
Okay,
but the name that I rang a bell, Denise Crosby. So I'll get to it. That she was Dr. Mary Speak, who will show up in another episode. I think in two episodes' time. So she was in Trail of the Pink Panther, Curse of the Pink Panther, Pet Sematary, Jackie Brown, Deep Impact, Star Trek Next Generation. She was Tasha Yar.
Oh, right.
So, yep, that's her, and she's also her Time to Space duplicate. She's the Romulan version of herself, and in one of the more recent Star Trek's New Voyages, she is someone else, Yar, another member of the family.
Okay, I totally didn't recognise her.
She was also in the Red Shoe Diaries, which is that other connection back to David Duchovny's weirdo pre-X-Files things.
Okay.
And Dexter, where she was Dexter's first kill, apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
In flashback. And last, there's Jay Underwood, who is Jeb Larold Dukes, who was in Uncle Buck, which is a kind of obscure John Candy comedy.
I don't think it's that obscure, but yeah.
It's more obscure now.
Yeah.
Well, so our generation knows these things, and like current generation probably go, what?
It's because we're old.
Star Trek Voyager, and he's in Millennium.
Okay. So, can you give us a synopsis for Empedocles?
Yes. Don't watch it.
Well, that was brief.
It was. Okay, in more precise terms. I should have done the voice. Don't watch it.
At least you're going to do this in more than 3 words, like I attempted last week.
That's true. Wait, don't watch it. No, that's forwards though.
Oh.
Because don't is a contraction.
I think I cheated with some contractions in my one too.
Anyway, from Wikipedia. In New Orleans, mild-mannered, white-collar worker Jeb Larold Dukes has a secret identity. Wait, no, he's fired from his job. Sorry, that's the wrong synopsis. After he leaves the office, Jeb witnesses a car chase which ends in a fiery crash. A burning figure that only Jeb can see emerges from the wreck and seems to merge with him. Jeb, now possessed by the being, returns to his office to massacre his boss and co-workers. Monica Reyes arrives at the crime scene and meets NOPD Detective Franklin Potter, who has called her out in his belief that the murders are related to Satanism. Reyes merely answers the detective that it is not devil worship and that the killer probably was under stress. As she is leaving, she witnesses one of the bodies carbonized into a charred corpse in front of her, only to have it revert to normal. Mulder takes a pregnant Scully to hospital where she doubles over in pain. There, Reyes phones him to ask about the case, but Mulder succeeds authority to John Doggett, who is formerly running the X-Files. However, Reyes says she can't call Doggett about it since it relates to his own circumstances. Meanwhile, Jeb is in a hotel room in Georgia trying to shoot himself in the head. Suddenly, he notices something wrong with his face. He claws at his face, peeling away the skin to reveal burning embers underneath. Mulder and Reyes meet in the FBI records room, where she divulges that she was one of the agents called in to investigate the murder of Doggett's son Luke years previously. They never found the killer, and when they discovered Luke's body, both Reyes and Doggett saw it transform into ashes instantly, something Doggett had spent the last few years convincing himself he did not see. Reyes believed it was a psychic clue, and now with the other crime scene, she has seen it again. Doggett soon attacks Mulder for looking into his son's case, but Reyes explains why they're investigating. She reveals that Bob Harvey, a suspect in Luke's murder, died in a car crash in New Orleans. Reyes stresses her vision's importance, but Doggett dismisses it. Reyes then visits Jeb's sister Katha and learns he did not know Bob Harvey. While Reyes is there, Katha receives a call from Jeb, but tells him to call later. As Jeb leaves the phone booth, he kills a female motorist. Meanwhile, Doggett learns from Scully that she has suffered a placental abruption. He asks her what made her start to believe in the paranormal. She says she realised she was afraid to believe. Scully later tells Mulder to keep trying to help Doggett. As Doggett approaches the body of Jeb's latest victim, he has a flashback of when he found Luke's body. Doggett storms off, but Reyes refuses to let it go, finally revealing her theory. She believes that the boy's murder was part of a thread of evil, an interconnected series of terrible events. Meanwhile, Carter returns home with her daughter and finds Jeb there. He insists it wasn't him who committed the murder and pleads to his sister for help. Cather calls the agents and tries to separate her daughter from Jeb, but he realizes what she is planning and uses his niece as a hostage. Before Jeb can shoot Doggett, Reyes incapacitates him with a round to the throat. Doggett finally embraces the memory of his vision. Mulder tells him that when he worked in the violent crimes and saw the horrible things people did, he began to think of evil like a disease that infected people. Some lack immunity to this disease of evil because of some tragedy in their lives. Jeb dies while Reyes and Cather are in the room. After the doctors leave, Cather's eyes glow much like Jeb's. She hits Reyes over the head with an oxygen tank and takes her gun. Before she can execute Reyes for killing her brother, Doggett appears and wrestles her to the ground. At the end, Doggett looks in on Cather, seeming to be drugged, lying in a hospital bed.
Thank you.
That was terrible.
Well, that was faster than you normally get to that point.
I was actually meant the synopsis.
Okay.
But the episode itself was also bad. I don't know quite why we're doing this whole Mulder-Doggett rivalry still. It feels odd. And like deliberately baiting him with hey, Reyes has brought him in to look at the background to his son's death. That bit of Doggett's backstory that we haven't touched on in ever.
I don't think we've even previously mentioned that Doggett's son is dead. I mean, it was back in Invocation, I think we first mentioned this, and the psyche in that just said he'd lost someone close to him, or words to that effect.
Yes, it was kind of hinted at before. And that was also part of why Doggett was so invested in the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, as a critical part of his backstory, it's hard not to equate this to like Scully or Mulder, where Mulder's thing about Samantha came up by the time of Conduit. That was like 4 episodes in, and we had what happened in full.
I think it's an interesting different with Doggett, though, having it, with Mulder, it's a disappearance, and there was always the possibility of finding Samantha alive.
Yeah.
With Luke Doggett, he's very, very dead. And the mystery is just the fact that Doggett has never caught the killer. So you still have that kind of element of we can discover more about this, but it's not starting with that kind of kernel of hope that Mulder had. No,
and I think the weird problem is Doggett, upon being assigned to the X-Files, immediately read through the entire caseload. Damn impressive. And in fact, he does keep referencing it. And Vienen has another bit where he will actually bring up what's in there, which is impressive.
I think it's showing the fact that Doggett doesn't believe in the supernatural, but he's still an excellent FBI agent and he's dedicated to his job.
He's a professional, basically. So, yeah. However, it's odd that he has that quirk, but there's no indication in any of the episodes that he is doing the cold case thing. Like, think Martin in Frasier, when he had that running thing where he kept bringing his cold case out. That one
case he couldn't solve.
Yeah, and he had it all laid out on the table, and eventually he did solve it, thanks to Daphne and Frasier interfering, and they came to the wrong conclusion. But there's no sense of that with Doggett. This has just been a part of his character that they've just left by the wayside.
Yeah.
Until now.
You think there'd be some kind of drive to actually solve this murder.
Yeah. Or just little details coming up every now and again, but we get nothing.
Scully does say in this episode the fact that she knows that Doggett has some kind of darkness in his past, but she's just not pried.
Yeah.
Which is very Scully as well. Her relationship with Doggett has always been very professional, and she knows there's something there but doesn't want to poke into it because she doesn't know him kind of personally that well.
No. I understand it for a point, but Empedocles feels a really odd episode to do it. And it's like we needed to fill time again. We also needed to have Reyes show up in a capacity.
It's making sure we're slowly building that relationship, because we do say we try not to look into the future here, but we know that Reyes becomes a more major character in season 9.
Yeah, so we can't really avoid that one. So we know this is coming, and we know we're trying to ground her in better than Doggett was grounding. At the same time, she's all the way down in New Orleans, but she can get to Washington, D.C. without any problems whatsoever.
That was one of the biggest critiques of the episodes I saw, is the fact that, well, I've never been there personally, but New Orleans isn't small-town America. It's a, big city.
Yeah.
And the fact that this big city cop at the start of the episode couldn't identify a Marilyn Manson CD and thought it was Satanism. This isn't out in the sticks where you've got someone who's very superstitious doing this.
Yeah, that did ring false as well, though. It's when he's looking at, just like Satan tarot cards and everything, and you're looking at going, that has got to be a CD insert. No Satanist has that kind of high quality gloss.
I've got to admit, I didn't recognise it as a CD insert, but when he opened it, I saw the tarot cards. I thought, well, that's not Satanism.
No.
That's just tarot.
Well, it's the gloss.
Mm.
It's like, these people operate underground. They don't have high quality stuff.
Mm.
If it's high quality, that means it's a professional printed. That implies money. Yeah, it's not a cult.
Yeah.
I think it was just an excuse to bring Reyes in somehow, because this is her whole deal.
Yeah, ritual crime, isn't it?
Yeah, although so far she keeps going to crime scenes and saying, nope, it's not that.
I think it's possibly a commentary on the satanic panic in America, where there were a lot of pushes like this to kind of link crime to Satanism or Wiccan or other things that basically weren't Christian.
D&D.
But you've got Reyes in there as a supposed expert of this, and all she ever does is goes to these sites where people are saying, yep, this is Satanism, and going, nah.
Well, I think this one, I can buy why she's brought into this one.
Yeah.
The whole thing, her actual introduction, that was just, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This is just insane. This is much better.
Mm.
At the same time, very weak. We could talk about the special effects. And, well, it's the whole, they're kind of lousy, but then it's the burnt bodies not matching the poses of the actual corpses is just a strange error.
The one effect I quite liked is the flaming man. When the man on fire gets out the car and just walks into him, I think is actually a really nice and incredibly creepy effect.
Yes.
That's about the only special effect I enjoyed in the entire episode.
Yeah, the tearing his face open was the whole, why is the two levels moving out of sync with each other?
I looked how they did that, actually, and essentially you do that effect. His face is painted green, and then they put a mask over the top of it, which has these kind of torn bits that he can sink his fingernails into. So it has that effect of he rips off the outer mask, and then they can green screen the green screen underneath to give that kind of lava effect.
Okay. Just weird me out they couldn't get the match up.
Yeah, it looks awful.
I think one of the biggest problems, though, is how flimsy the connection is in this episode.
Mm.
Because Reyes twigs on this whole burnt body thing, which I can see where she's coming from with this, and Doggett's whole vision of it. That's all good. And then later on, you get revealed that the guy who died was one of the suspects in Doggett's son's death.
Yeah.
And, okay, sure. And then he's now dead, and the possessed Jeb doesn't look like he's going to come take revenge on Doggett or do anything else like that. So, what? Why?
I think you're kind of missing the point of what they're doing here is...
Well, it's the infectious evil.
Yes,
Evil disease.
it's as Mulder describes it at the end of the episode, is his view from working violent crimes is that evil is a kind of disease that can spread between people. And that's what we're doing this. It's not something that's targeting Doggett or targeting his kid or anything specifically. It's something that's killed because it's evil.
Yeah, but then we defeated it at the end of the episode.
Interestingly, in a modern movie standpoint, we do address this idea in the most recent Halloween films. The idea of evil as being something pure and untransmutable. That therefore, lives on and can only be killed ideologically, otherwise it will keep persisting.
Yeah. That said, those were not good films. Didn't enjoy them.
They're better than the Rob Zombie ones.
Okay, they're better than Rob Zombie films. I think Halloween, as much as it was just infuriating to watch, handles it a little bit better.
Mm.
In this, I think it's the too isolated infection thing, because it's like a one-to-one infection. It's not a spread. It's not a disease as such, is it?
It's literally transferring from one person to the next.
Yeah.
From Doggett's son's potential killer to Jeb's sister at the end of the episode.
Yeah, and then it's now stuck in her, as far as we can tell. Which feels a bit of an odd one.
Because she's left in that kind of catatonic state.
Yeah. It's an idea, I think, like, if this was Buffy, this would be an early episode in the season. And you'd build it up to it in the end, to the confrontation with this parasitic evil that you've cornered somehow or trapped somewhere.
When you've noted you've attacked it in several forms already and it's jumped to someone else.
Yeah, and it's an ongoing plot line where you're hunting it down on it just as you think you've got it cornered. There's someone it can get to, and you've lost it again. it feels too big an idea for the episode.
That was actually a lot of criticisms at the time. This episode got a lot more lukewarm reviews than I was expecting. I thought it was going to be polarizing again.
Okay.
But generally, even people who liked it kind of criticized the way that this idea was handled. In the fact that on its own, it actually is a really interesting concept, but you rushed it in this episode and we get no adequate conclusion or no real explanation as to whether Mulder and Reyes' theories are even correct.
Yeah. Like, as the audience, we're used to the characters not necessarily knowing the truth, but we, the audience, usually do have a better idea than the characters. Not this time. And the other thing about it is, I think it would be... I kind of wanted the presence to cause ripples around it, kind of thing. Like, Doggett getting this mad isn't because this is how Doggett behaves, but because they're dealing with this entity.
Like a butterfly effect.
Yeah. So, because it feels out of sorts for Doggett to get that angry. Because I don't think he's done that before, has he?
It's personal to him, though. It's understandable. You would get angry in a situation like this.
It would. But at the same time, it feels off when you had Mulder punching him in the previous episode, and now Doggett is immediately turning around and just being...
justified, I feel.
Just as much as he's justified, you do kind of want to say to Reyes, it's like, Reyes, you keep saying you're Doggett's friend, but friends don't do this. This is really personal, and you're just said, okay, let's get the cooking.
I think it's, well, much akin to the way Mulder behaves, though I do think Reyes is a more tempered version of Mulder.
Yes.
It's the blinkered nature of how much this is hurting Doggett. If he's supposedly your friend and he wants to drop this,
Yeah,
and you are diligently trying to prove that there's something supernatural about his son's death, it's no, just let sleeping dogs lie, really.
yeah. Well, I think that also comes back to my thing of it too small scale, because if it was an existential threat, ultimately, whatever this force was, then I can see Reyes pushing through. This is kind of the whole, you've managed to run into this thread that you can't be certain is even what you think it is. Because the only lead you've got is it's someone who was suspected in killing Luke Doggett. And that was how many years ago?
And the fact that she had the weird vision at both of the murder scenes.
Yeah.
Where we've touched on the fact that Reyes at least believes she's kind of psychically sensitive.
Yeah.
So it's how much you trust that Reyes does have this ability as well, or if she's deluding herself.
Yeah, and there's not enough question marks over that. It's very much that she's seen what she's seen, and Doggett is lying to us.
Yeah.
And we'd kind of get confirmation of that. But, I mean, I do at least like the fact that Doggett keeps insisting he's over it, but then you keep getting the framed flashbacks. It's like, there's a flashback of him finding the body, and the people standing around when they found Jeb's other victim. At the same time, do these people just standing circles around the dead bodies when they find them, or do they sort of just rope this place off with crime scene tape and get someone else in?
That'd be less dramatic.
Well, I know, but it's still one of those whole reality versus dramatic things. What's up with Mulder and Scully?
I think you need to elaborate on that one.
Okay, so as far as both of them are concerned, they don't know who the father of the child is.
True, yeah.
Which is weird.
I guess either way, you should know who the father of the child
You
is.
should, because it's...
How closed are sperm donor records, though?
As far as I know, you can see a picture of the person and a synopsis of what they do. It's very generalized.
Okay, so you wouldn't necessarily know who the person is, but you'd have an idea of what they look like, at least.
Yeah, well, I think the whole idea is you get an idea of what the child could look like, or the attributes the child could inherit. And then the job gives you a indication of intelligence level and success rate.
I assume they'd do some kind of screening because you'd want to be aware if the father had any kind of illnesses they could pass on or anything like that.
Yeah. What I'm coming to here, though, is I'm pretty sure the X-Files writers decided to just pitch this into the long grass and not think about it. What it is we had Mulder and Scully taking the IVF for the first time, and the IVF didn't take, and Scully was very upset. And then we commented when that episode went through, they'll usually do rounds of IVF.
Yeah, for as long as you can afford to do so.
Right. As per Requiem, as far as we can tell, all the rounds of IVF failed.
Yeah, I guess we've got to assume that.
Yeah. So, and then at the end of the episode, Scully finds out she's pregnant.
Yeah.
Scully's found out she's pregnant, and then she just leaves it at that, but she didn't mention that she's undertaken a new round of IVF with someone else. They haven't blamed if Mulder's sperm is good enough.
Or she just slept with Mulder.
Or she just slept with Mulder, yeah. That's not even been floated as a possibility either. So, I don't know, not being a woman and not trying to get pregnant, and I know you don't have an insight into this either, but surely she would want to know who the parent of the child is, because otherwise, Scully, it's a clone. Because that can happen. Very rare, but it can happen.
It doesn't really happen in mammals so much, parthenogenesis.
No. Yeah.
It's never been proven in humans.
Yeah, I know. But anyways, Scully as a scientist, who is the father of your child, Scully? Because we know it's not the pizza guy.
I mean, it's possible.
It's possible it's the pizza guy, but given Scully's weirdness about it, I don't think it's the pizza guy. Neither of them think it's Mulder. It's not Doggett. Not Skinner. Not Krychek. And it's not Frohickey.
You've got to assume that therefore it's an anonymous sperm donation.
You do. But then it's why it's a weird subject that doesn't come up. Because it's kind of, I'd expect more to say, what did the guy do?
I think in her position I'd be curious.
Yeah. But I mean,
I'm not sure I'd ask a single person who the father was, to be honest, because that's a bit personal.
It is.
But in myself, if I didn't know and I was the pregnant party, I think I'd be curious.
Well,
or, worried that maybe he's got a high tendency for heart disease or something that I don't know about.
Yeah. What I'm also coming around to, though, is Scully, Mulder is the person you asked immediately to do this. To be the donor.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. And now Scully is 7 months pregnant. You'd think that conversation would come up, because Mulder has alluded to it a few times, but he's never actually said, oh, how did it go in the end? What take it off? What process did it? Was it just me who was bad for this? It's a conversation that just doesn't happen for some reason.
Mm.
Also, that doll is creepy. Why did Mulder give her that?
Oh yeah, that thing's horrifying. I'd have waited till he was out of my eyeline and set it on fire, to be honest.
Yes.
Here, Scully, have this Chinga doll.
Yeah. And the other thing that got me is there's also the flirting, because there's a whole thing of nice package and all this stuff. It's like, what are you two doing? Are you together or what?
It's so hard to tell.
Then Scully just sits most of the episode out. And I don't know about you, but is her reason for believing Mulder, or becoming more of a believer, kind of rubbish?
You mean the conversation she has with Doggett about this?
Yeah. The whole being too afraid to believe or not willing to believe?
Or too afraid to.
Too afraid to believe. And it's, I think the problem with it is that hasn't seemed like how you got there, Scully. You got there by being shown too much evidence, I thought. Like, there's an alien fetus. There are multiple UFOs you've seen. You've definitely seen one in person now. Mm. You've seen shapeshifters. You've seen genetic mutants. You've seen the Fluke Man. You've seen tombs. A matter of faith isn't the problem.
No, I know. I think we've said that many times before.
We have. It's just such a bizarre thing to put on Doggett.
True.
You had a thing about Empedocles and who Empedocles is, because the episode doesn't even mention it.
You gonna let me talk about philosophy?
I'll let you talk about philosophy. Well, also, I like your comment of, hey, there's a whole better interpretation of this episode that the writers did not take.
I think I can do it. Using my philosophy degree is always my favourite thing to do. I don't get to do it much on this podcast.
You don't. I mean, possibly we should do. I mean, most of it's going to be... So philosophically, this is what... Chris Carter is a monster.
You know, my dissertation was actually on about film and philosophy as well, so I can link it in even better for you. But anyway, Empedocles is a pre-Socratic Greek philosopher. And because the ancient Greek philosophers, anything that came before Plato, we don't have a lot of written text from. What we know about Empedocles just essentially comes in bits and pieces that have survived, as well as, other historical accounts at the time. But the main thing, which is what they've got Empedocles for this episode, that we can attribute to him, is he's the one who gave us the idea of the 4 elements. So essentially everything is made of a combination of earth, air, fire, and water, of which he said the most powerful element was fire, which is all we're using in this episode. That's why it's called Empedocles. Interestingly, his thesis, and I digress a bit, goes a bit further than that, because it's not just the existence of those 4 elements. He also had 2 kind of unseen elements which were called love and strife. And essentially, in the purest form of love and strife, there can be no life. But his idea was whenever love and strife come into contact, that's where you can have life and combinations of elements and things like that. So it all creates this kind of big, complex elemental wheel that determines life. The two features that I think they missed that make this more interesting if you wanted to evoke Empedocles is one is the other thing that Empedocles was famous for was giving us the concept of reincarnation, which is something that exists in Eastern philosophies as well. I'm not sure which predate each other, but Empedocles' idea is very similar to the kind of Buddhist idea that we essentially go through cycles of existence. Empedocles said there would be 30,000 of them. So you keep being reborn again and again, and depending on how well you live your life, you get closer to essentially breaking the cycle and becoming what he called a demon, which was a pure being that existed, in a kind of perfect existence, and only fell from that if it committed a cardinal sin like murder, in which case it would re-enter the cycle of reincarnation. So I thought the idea of kind of constant reincarnations and this entity in Empedocles that could switch bodies kind of fit more into that era of Empedocles' teachings rather than the four elements. But the final thing, the thing that makes Empedocles most famous is how he died. And there is a fun story about it, of essentially Empedocles died because he killed himself. And he killed himself by hurling himself into Mount Etna, which is an active volcano. But it's believed that his idea was that by completely atomizing his body, he could kind of foster this belief that he'd broken the cycle of reincarnation because nobody would find him. So they think, Empedocles was so wise and accurate that he's ceased to exist, he's broken the cycle, and now he's become one of these pure beings. But unfortunately, Mount Etna spat out one of his sandals, and when they found that, they realised what he'd done, and therefore this entire idea was entirely pointless. Probably not an accurate telling of how he died, but that's the story anyway, and it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Philosopher committing suicide sort of way can never be fun.
Well, yes. All of which I think is far more interesting than what we got.
Yeah, the Greek philosophers were wild. They're always entertaining to study. I really liked studying them at university. But it's a shame that, we don't really have complete texts about them. We just know various kind of ideas and how they influence people down the line, because Plato was very inspired by Empedocles' idea of the kind of elements, because it kind of fed into Plato's famous theory of the forms, which is one of his main teachings.
Ah.
Sorry, I probably bored people a bit with being a philosophy geek there, but there we go.
It's fine. Do we have anything else for this charming... bleh? Or shall we...
I don't think so. I've given my philosophy lecture of why we could have used the title more interestingly in the episode now.
Well, hold that thought, because I think we can go with... I think the next episode uses the title as badly, if not worse.
There are some interesting fan theories about that title and why it's called Vienen.
Yeah, I saw those, and some of those we can't talk about just yet.
Yeah, we can allude to it a little.
We can allude to it a little, but some of the specific phrasing we haven't had yet.
No, true.
We are, of course, talking about Vienen and not Alone, which I got wrong last week. Alone is next week.
Oh, did you say we were going to be watching Alone?
I thought we were watching Alone, but no, we're watching Vienen. Or we watched Vienen. So, directed by Rod Hardy, written by Stephen Maeder, and first broadcast on the 29th of April 2001. Guest stars: Casey Biggs played Mr. Saska. He was in Broken Arrow, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and Enterprise. There's MC Gainey, who played Bo Taylor. I think this is the really tall guy in the hard hat with the mustache.
Oh, the kind of main officer-y sort of guy, yeah.
He was in Starman.
Okay.
In Con Air, Terminator 3, Sideways. And then I got to the one where I said, wait, really? Tangled. He is the head guard of the prison.
Okay.
The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And I know that this existed. American Gothic. Different American Gothic. Lee Rayman played Yuri Volkov, who was in Last Action Hero.
Okay.
Star Trek Into Darkness. Caroline in the City. And Salmon Cat. And last but not least is Miguel Sandoval, who played Martin Ortega. He was in Repo Man, Howard the Duck, Jurassic Park. He's the guy that Gennaro comes to visit who has the chunk of amber.
Oh, okay.
Get Shorty, The Book of Life, the animated one. Seinfeld, because he's the guy who runs the convenience store, who's run the cockfighting ring.
Okay.
Frasier, and Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency. Another series that keeps coming back.
Yeah, true.
So would you like to tell us about Ulrichs and what we can safely say, because I think it's all over all the advertising, is the final time the black hole will ever trouble us with its presence.
Hooray! Our episode opens on an offshore oil platform, where we are introduced to Simon de la Cruz, a Mexican worker who fatally stabs his fellow crew member, Ed, the radio operator. He then begins to dramatically destroy the platform's radio equipment, only to be confronted by Bo Taylor, another worker whose body starts to glow. At the FBI headquarters, Mulder tells John Doggett about the murder and explains that 90% of De La Cruz's body was covered in radiation burns. Naturally, the connection of radiation and an oil rig is bringing to mind the black oil, an alien entity we have not seen for quite a while now. Galpex Petroleum, the platform's owner, says that the burns are due to an explosion, but Mulder, of course, is suspicious of this. Due to Mulder's meddling behind the scenes, Mulder, Doggett and Kersh meet with Galpex's vice president, Martin Ortega, who tells them that the company had discovered a large oil reserve in the Gulf of Mexico and now was kind of embroiled in a kind of political war for it, because the Mexican government also believed they had a claim in it. Kersh sends Doggett to the Gulf to investigate, but when Doggett arrives he finds that Mulder had chartered his own flight out to the oil rig and is already interviewing people. They meet with Bo Taylor, who claims that De La Cruz tried unsuccessfully to blow up the entire platform, again as part of this kind of war between the Mexican oil cartels and the US government. In the meantime, Scully autopsies De La Cruz's body and finds black oil pooling inside his skull. However, the oil is irradiated and appears to be dead. Her conclusion is that maybe De La Cruz had some kind of natural immunity to the black oil, possibly because he's an indigenous Mexican national, whereas a majority of the rest of the crew on the rig are all American. Back on the oil rig, Doggett and Mulder hear this report from Scully, who encourages them to quarantine the entire rig, just in case this is an outbreak of the black oil. As Doggett and Mulder search for proof of the infection, they discover that one crew member is missing, another Mexican national called Diego Garza. As they search for Garza, they discover that somebody has set a fire in the communications room, again seeming to try to want to destroy the communications equipment. As the agents tackle the fire, Garza attacks Doggett and knocks him unconscious. When Doggett awakens, Garza, very clearly unstable, cuts Doggett's arm to check for the presence of the oil in his blood. Although there is a kind of communication breakdown between them because Doggett's Mexican is poor and Garza does not speak English, he repeatedly warns him Vienen, the Spanish phrase that means they are coming. In the meantime, Kersh tells Scully that he is lifting the quarantine on the platform. Annoyed at her for having put this in place in the first place without any evidence, she is forced to obey him. On thinking about De La Cruz's immunity further, Scully realises that that's why he's covered in radiation burns. Because the black oil could not infect him, it had to destroy him. After speaking with Garza, Doggett leaves to find Mulder, but is attacked by Bo Taylor. Mulder arrives just in time to overpower him, and the two agents are forced to barricade themselves in the communications room. They attempt to radio out with a message of warning while the crew attack the door to try and get at them. Scully receives their message and tells them that Kersh has broken the quarantine. Mulder then destroys the platform's radio, so the infected crew cannot communicate with any aliens in orbit. Suddenly, the crewmen stop their attack and begin to sabotage the platform, causing Doggett and Mulder to try and flee. Doggett just tried to take Garza with them, but discovers that he's already been found and irradiated. They jump off the platform just in time before it explodes.
Yeah, but what do you do at
Both
the FBI?
Mulder and Doggett are rescued by helicopters that Kersh has sent to break the quarantine.
Muldering.
Cool.
Later, when they meet back at the FBI headquarters, Mulder informs Doggett that he has now been dismissed from the FBI
we don't know what he
and
is
will no
doing.
longer be working on
At
the
no
X-Files.
point are we shown his current work life.
Whether they've stuffed him back on violent crimes, or like last time they tried to force him to quit, just had him doing endless paperwork.
Yeah, or wiretaps, or any of the other weird stuff. It's that bit's missing, and then instead you have this whole thing where he keeps breaking into the X-Files office and meddling with the investigations and everything.
Well, in the case of this one, he's almost caused a political incident by kind of reopening this closed case that's a contentious movement because it could be the assassination of a Mexican national by Americans.
Yeah, and as much as he chafed against Skinner's rule in the past, Skinner didn't hate Mulder as much as Kersh seems to, so I don't know why Mulder keeps on poking the bear.
Yeah.
It's that, well, I don't know what you think Kersh is going to do to you. Is he going to roll over this time and say, oh, it's all fine?
Yeah.
So it kind of feels like they wanted Mulder to be fired, but just needed to pad 3 episodes.
Yeah. I can't argue with that.
It's so weird. But anyway, my initial reaction to watching this episode again was, so there's a criticism that comes up in season 1 of The X-Files a lot, which is about ICE. And everyone just basically writes stuff as, it's the thing, but The X-Files.
Yeah, that's a fair analysis of ICE, to be fair.
But no one accuses Vienen of being, it's the thing on an oil rig in The X-Files.
I kind of like the reversal in Vienen, though, because, like, in The Thing and in ICE, you're looking for the one infected person, and you have the Twister's option, oh, there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
In this, literally everyone is infected.
Yeah, at the same time, though, we can't escape the fact that we're following the thing's beats right the way down the line.
You even got kind of a blood test in this one, as so far as Garza scratches Doggett to see if he's got oil in his blood.
And I was going to say, okay, that's interesting, but I feel that should have come up in the last 5 seasons.
I don't think anyone's ever tried it before.
No, but I don't see any reason why it would happen either.
Well, it might, because you do often see the oil kind of burrowing under people's skin, so presumably it is moving through blood.
Well, it's possibly. I do think it's got it's interesting dramatic timing that when Mulder isn't looking at a guy, their eyes will just all fill with black oil.
I think you said when you're watching it's why does it even do that?
Yeah.
When nobody's watching, you just have the kind of oily eye effect.
Yeah. I mean, I could understand if it was it has to do this on a sporadic interval. It's some part of how it's maintaining control of the host. That would be fine, and that risks exposure, but that's definitely not how it works. But, I mean, the thing comparisons really got to me with the whole destroying the communication equipment, giving that, quite a dramatic scene in The Thing.
Yeah.
And it's not something we had in ICE, but we have it 3 times in this episode. And then I get into the whole, what is actually going on? You forced me to explain.
I am going to force you to explain it. Yeah, you can't just say that.
Oh, okay. Well, I was hoping you were going to sort of chime in or something, but... Okay, so they found this new oil field.
Yes.
This one happens to have the black oil in it, rather than just regular black oil.
Well, no, it might have oil as well. We still don't know how it transmits. It's not in all oil, as Mulder points out in this episode.
Yeah, but then again, they've also drilled it up, so it should be in that bit of oil that Doggett has touched.
I imagine you're going on the basis of you drink water with a parasite in it. There's still a chance you're not going to drink the parasite.
Yeah, which is a fair point. So they found this vast new oil field, which does have traces of black oil within it.
Yes.
They've drilled it up. The crew has become infected. They've been infected long enough that they're operating as normal. Because it strikes me that I don't quite... Does the black oil like watching the bowling? Was it bowling they were watching? On the
Some
TV?
sports ball.
It's a sports ball. But it's like, Bo Taylor, the big guy, is infected by the black oil because he kills Dela Cruz.
Mm.
He keeps fixing the TV, and unless he got infected between fixing the TV and walking over to the communication area, he's possessed by the black oil at this point, and the black oil likes watching bowling.
Okay, twofold. We've joked and said everyone's infected by the black oil. Maybe they're not. Maybe there are more people with immunities on there.
That's true.
Or it's flipping boring waiting for the spaceship. Maybe we want something to do.
Okay, I'll give you that one as well. I was going to go with the black hole isn't normally that chill. Is it?
No.
The black hole is usually, right, kill everyone, irradiate whoever gets in my way, I'm doing what I want.
Marching straight onwards like the T-1000.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine we wouldn't just leap everyone off the rig and start them swimming towards shore.
Yeah.
That's what the black hole does. So, you've got, because again, this is the thing necessitated a stealth thing, because if you got it cornered, you could do something. when you corner the black oil, I don't know what you can do. Because generally, it can just kill you. Because Mulder doesn't normally get next to the black oil. Like, Krychek was one of the rare exceptions Mulder has been anywhere near that stuff.
Yeah.
And his own infection. Normally, he's kept a great remove because basically it's devastating if you upset it.
Mm.
So, quite why they try to break down the door of the control room and don't just say, hey, let's nuke the oil rig.
True that.
And then I get confused as to, okay, so the guy destroyed the communication equipment to stop them getting off the oil rig or to stop them communicating with the alien ships?
I presumed it was a little of both.
Yeah.
That they were trying to call down their taxi, essentially.
Yeah, but as far as we know, well, so the radio operator must have been infected by the black oil and he was trying to call them down. There's a signal they could detect, though we're not sure what that was about.
There's also the second radio operator that they bring in and infect him almost immediately because presumably they need their radio operator to be one of them.
Yeah. So I get that bit, and so he's trying to stop them doing whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Not that we know what it is. So that, okay. And then I can play the destruction of all the equipment, that's fine. Where I get really unstuck is, so Mulder has radioed out for help. The helicopters are inbound, and the black oil infected people start attacking the rig. Why did they do that?
I've been reading extensive Reddit threads about this to try and make sense of it. So, first off, the largely established theory is when you're saying about what they're doing with the signal is it's going two ways because it's a dialogue.
Okay.
You know, they are radioing for help and help is radioing them back. The destruction of the rig is the fact that they've figured that with other helicopters closing in and stuff, things are failing and they need to destroy all evidence of their existence. So therefore they are destroying the top part of the rig because, you know, the oil is in this pool underground anyway.
Okay, though, you think the black hole could just hitch a ride to mainland and then just go about its business?
It depends how many of them you're getting off. Didn't they say there's like 17 people in that rig or something?
Yeah.
There's not going to be 17 people in the helicopters coming across.
Well, no, but I mean, it's still, I don't... The destruction is a bit weird, right? It's kind of like the whole, we need the episode to end dramatically, so they're going to damage the rig. I mean, if Mulder had, started the thing off to self-destruction, that would be one thing.
Mm.
The black oil doing it is where you're going to go, what?
Yeah, okay.
And why didn't the rest of you not jump off of the oil rig with Mulder?
Presumably they're worried about capture now.
No, fair point. It feels a bad end to the black oil. I don't know how you end the black oil storyline, but don't think it's this.
I think the movie and its aftermath kind of ended the black oil story.
Well, yeah. I don't know why we're still doing this.
There was a Reddit thread for that as well, though.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, the fan theory is, we've noted through this podcast that the black oil's nature changes.
Yep.
The largely established fan theory is that the black oil's nature does not change.
I'm very confused.
That what you are seeing in this episode is the black oil as it is in Piper Maru.
I would say yes, it is operating closer to that.
The black oil you see in the movie in the beginning is black oil that has been infected with the Purity virus, which is why it behaves differently to the regular black oil. So that's why you have the other use of the black oil where it kind of gestates aliens, is essentially diseased black oil that is not functioning like normal black oil.
Okay.
Which is why those episodes also keep making reference to purity and purity control as well. Fans will say there is subtext to tell you this in the series. I'm not sure where the subtext actually is, and I'm not going to doubt it does exist if people have found it. But that is how we are differentiating. So what you are seeing here is an end to the black oil storyline that started in Piper Maru, and we're just discounting this kind of mutated black oil, let's say, that's in the movie.
Okay. I give them as credit for that's a good effort.
Mm.
I think where it falls over for me is you then need to claim that the Greys have subverted the black oil as a different species and are using it as a storage mechanism.
It's a parasite, the black oil, rather than a species.
Yeah, but the Grey aliens are dissolving themselves into the black oil and storing themselves in the Earth's crust.
Mm.
That's what the film and that whole bunch of stuff went with, and that's why they started gestating out of it.
Or they've mutated. Purity's an alien virus, we don't have to understand
No.
it, really. But whatever the mutation Purity's caused in this parasite has caused grey aliens to form. It's affected the black oil's life cycle, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, I've...
Again, they're alien organisms, and you're trying to put kind of real-world logic on it.
Yeah, I know, and I'm also going with as much as Will Man and Kidman appear to be telling the truth in the film, there's still the possibility that the Syndicate didn't quite understand what they were doing either.
Yeah.
However, when Fight the Future happened, that did pull everything together and give you a more or less coherent and consistent explanation of everything to that point.
Mm.
This feels... Basically, someone came to the X-Files and said, I don't like everything from season 4 onwards, we're going to ignore what happened. We want the old Piper Maru black oil back. And it's like, sure, you can do that. You're going to leave a lot of weird questions, and this episode doesn't make any sense even if you just forget that happened.
Mm. But have you seen the Simpsons episode with Lucy Lawless where she says, if there's anything we can't explain, we just say a wizard do it?
Yeah, I know. That's always the defense.
If there's anything we can't explain, we just say Purity did it for the X-Files.
That's a terrible way to operate, though, isn't it? It's like, did you care that little about your consistency?
I do think... I half suspect that some of these kind of seeming retcons almost have been put in by fans just to try and make sense of plot holes.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, these are the kind of things that I would have liked to think that the series creators would have addressed. Thinking, oh, hey, we've just totally changed the way black oil works. Maybe we should just put some reason in there for that.
Yes. Again, we go back to the Bible again, and the whole no one looks at that wretched document. But, I mean, yeah, it's always been a stretch to go from Piper Maru to Fight the Future. But it covered its bases well enough, and it had a whole load of preamble and a whole load of stuff afterwards to make it all gel together.
Mm.
That you could say, yeah, the black hole transparently was a one-off entity you have retconned into the continuity, but we're going to have to go with that to now retcon it back out again.
It'd be like doing the same thing with every other monster of the week of kind of like, yeah, Tombs somehow integral to the conspiracy.
Yeah.
We've got to work in a way he's an alien somehow. Or any other monster of the week we could do that with. Essentially, the black oil was a monster of the week.
Exactly. I mean, the only benefit it had was it was another alien species. And that made it slightly easier to do it with.
You could argue that about some other ones, though, like the parasitic worms in ice were aliens.
You could. I mean, I'm going to go back to the usual one of Genderbender.
But we have had other instances where the cause of the monster of the week has been extraterrestrial.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And so that's all fine. And it would have been awkward if you'd retcon that in, but you could have done it.
Mm.
I think my problem is not so much the retconning them in, it's trying to retcon them back out again. It's like the time has passed. You can't now extract it back out again and say, no, ignore all that stuff. Ignore the core central part of your series. It doesn't apply. Because we want to have the black oil irradiate people, only it does it 3 times? And it feels like it should do it more on the sort of trigger.
The black oil's irradiation is always kind of interesting, though, because it only seems to affect people.
It's very localized as well.
Let's compare the X-Files novel Ground Zero.
Yes, which devastated that entire room.
But they're like nuclear ghosts in that essentially work a lot like the black oil does, although the Ground Zero was actually written a lot earlier, I
was
think.
saying, it's very interesting that was the season 2, that was written around the time of season 2 where...
But when they do it, you have like blast glass forming, there's... black and things, there's one bit where it's near a swimming pool and the swimming pool evaporates and things like that. But in the black oil, it's only ever people that seem to be incinerated by it.
Yeah. Which you have to go, So we haven't really touched on it, and I am in two minds about it. The natural immunity to the black oil is one of those whole, yeah, but also, yeah.
I guess you're working on, at the end of the day, the black oil's a parasite, and I know as X-Files creators we get parasites and diseases mixed up, but some ethnic groups are very resistant to certain diseases or very vulnerable to them. Take smallpox almost eradicating Mexico, for example.
Yeah, and they mentioned the immunity to heart disease with people in Italy, isn't it?
You do have, I'm not sure about that one, but certain cultures have lower rates of things occurring.
Yeah. And it's the whole, I can absolutely buy there's a certain amount of natural immunity to these things. And alien parasites, sure, it's like everything else. No infection rate or transmission vector is 100%.
Again, though, it's a parasite, not an illness,
Yeah,
which is a bit different.
But even then, it's not 100%.
No.
People do have natural immunities. That I don't mind too much. I think where I get a bit weirded out, though, is when she finds the black oil inside him. So
In his brain.
So it managed to get in there and then discovered it couldn't do anything and didn't leave again. But then it got irradiated, and it being vulnerable to radiation feels really odd.
I'm going to go with it being in his brain feels very odd, because oil is thicker than water.
Yeah, it shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, and it's any kind of thickening or blockage in the brain. That's what causes strokes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So even this thing being inert and being able to hurt him, if it's pooling inside his brain, it's going to be like a bleed on the brain. He's going to wind up not in a very good way because of it. And he seems perfectly fine until he's murdered in this episode.
Yeah, and I think that's the other problem, is it's not clear when they try to infect him.
Mm.
The sting of the episode is quite good with the whole mystery aspect going on, and then when, the black hole thing happens, you sit up and go, oh, whoa, okay, we're doing this again.
Yeah.
At the same time, you have to ask, so I'm guessing you didn't try and infect him in the radio room, so was it a really awkward time like 3 weeks ago when they pinned him down to his bed, poured black oil over him, and it went, not working?
Maybe they didn't realise it hadn't worked until this incident in the room, because both him and Gaza look visibly nervous in that scene in there.
Yeah.
It might just be that they're lying below the radar thinking, oh hell, they're going to figure us out sooner or later. Literally everyone else in the room is a parasitic alien.
But then again, that harkens back to the whole weirdness of it, of the aliens are playing a role they don't need to. Because the black hole has access to your memories as far as we can tell.
Yeah.
But it does not care. So if it thinks everyone on the rig is infected, presumably it does whatever it does for fun and not watch bowling.
It's killing the time.
It's killing time.
It takes a long time for the spaceship to get here.
Only one alien has ever been interested in human sports.
Which means that there is a precedent.
There is a precedent. However, given that they murdered him for that...
But that might not be the black oil people, that's the Greys.
But that is the black oil people, because we know you all used to hang together. And now we're trying to retcon it out again. Because the grey aliens, the shapeshifters, and the black oil were all the same thing.
I think it's kind of sweet. It's like an old Spielberg movie.
Well, okay. Well, I mean, the natural, sure.
Hmm.
This one less so.
But in a Spielberg movie, they'd have the kind of quirk.
They would, okay.
Like the aliens would just be really addicted to hot chocolate or something like that.
It's true. But it still feels odd that the black oil is actually, actively being stealthy for a change. When it doesn't need to, or doesn't normally.
I like to think of it more that you've got De La Cruz and Gaza sat there like Shaun of the Dead, trying to impersonate the other zombies in the room.
So if they got food coloring, they put it into their eyes each morning just so they sort of have the smoky effect. And they just keep walking into walls because they can't see.
And it's like, oh no, everyone's marching out there, quick join in the back and try and march like they are.
It's interesting that the usual people aren't involved in this episode. Like, Spotnitz and Chris Carter aren't involved.
Oh, at all?
At all. Or they're involved in the executive producer capacity, but they're not credited for the writing.
I'm pretty sure it was the guy who did Salvage did this one.
Yeah. But I find it interesting that the people who are meant to be dictating the conspiracy aren't dictating the conspiracy in this one. Which might be a part of why it's so weird, but then why is it on the air?
To be fair, it's not really a conspiracy episode, it's just putting to bed the black oil.
Yeah, but it should be a conspiracy episode, though, because we've got dangling plots at the end with "they're coming."
Yes, we should really address that as well.
We should. I mean,
in a literal sense, it's the spaceship that's going to pick up these black oil people.
Yeah. And another one, we had it a few things ago with like Billy Miles's resurrection and everything, and everyone's saying, "Oh, the aliens are amongst us." And this was episode 2 of the series. Deep Throat said they've been here for a very long time. This isn't a new concept.
No, and even recently you've had it kind of with whatever the hell is going on with Noel Rohr.
Yeah.
So we know he's not human.
And
which kind of also fits into this, they've been amongst us a long time. If you're looking at him, Doggett's known him for years, he looks totally normal except for the weird bump on his neck.
Yeah. But I want to predate it even further. Like, the shapeshifters have been around for decades.
They were playing baseball.
They've been here since the 50s, if not before. It's this concept has been done to death in the X-Files. You can't keep saying, they're already here or they're coming. It's like, Yeah, we know. They're under the ground. We keep drilling them up.
You could go for the ominousness of their coming is something worse than you're expecting.
Yes, which is what ultimately I think they're trying for.
I think it's a weird word for Doggett to know, especially with the difference in tense in Spanish. If you don't speak Spanish very well, you might recognise the word for come, but would you recognise the phrase they are coming?
No, absolutely not. I don't get how he knows that. It's odd because it makes me think suddenly of Fearful Symmetry. Because Mulder has to show the last sign language that Sophie gives to her trainer.
Yeah.
To find out what it means. Quite why you don't have Doggett say he kept saying the same thing, Vienen, and someone's saying, oh, what, it just means they're coming.
Yeah.
Must have been the helicopters.
Yeah.
It's like, that, you could...
Yeah, that works pretty well.
Yeah. So, it's pointless to give him that information. I just feel this is an odd episode. I mean, if this episode had been in season 4 or something, I think I'd have less objection to it.
If it was closer to Piper Maru, you mean?
Yeah. On retrospect, I've never enjoyed the conversion of the black hole from one-off villain to integral to the conspiracy. That has always read wrong to me because it was always bolted onto the conspiracy partway through. And a return to form should be good, but it's been at least 2 seasons since we last dabbled with the black hole in any capacity. And yeah, the syndicate's been dead the entire time. We're left with the other weird realization that the black hole is just underground. It's just lying in these oil fields. And
we kind of knew that already.
We knew it already, but I don't think they ever made it clear that it was it's still down there, and we're just gonna keep drilling it up, and it's gonna pop up and say, "Okay, where is everyone? Hello, taxi. I need to get off this planet. Why do we have this planet? This ours? Have we all shapeshifted into humans and we're pretending for someone else?" There are a lot of questions the black hole should have.
Poor oil.
Because it as far as the film line is concerned, they're being dredged up so they can now shapeshift. So all the humans could just be put on a show because there's some other alien species that turn up and said, "Right, we're here to destroy you." Oh no, just humans here. Don't blink, don't blink, don't blink.
Steve, you only do the eye thing when no one's watching.
Damn it. I think as the frequent phrase complaint is it's just placement of the episode. If you located us somewhere else, it wouldn't be a problem.
I quite like Vienen on the whole. I think it's an exciting episode and it's got some good tense moments. And I especially like the bits with Doggett and Garza and that kind of communication link and Doggett. Because we're into the new Doggett now where he's trying to be a bit more open, trying to understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
As well. My biggest problem with it is the fact that the last few episodes we've kind of been shafting Scully.
Yes, she really has been just pushed to the wayside.
Which I can understand to a degree is she couldn't have gone out to the soil rig. She can't be that active. She's almost ready to pop, basically.
Yeah.
But at the same time, she seems so powerless. In the last episode, she spent most of the episode in hospital, having had the complications. In this episode, she gets to do, one autopsy and then is basically told off for doing so and just sits back for the rest of the episode.
Yes, well, they do keep stressing that she was repeatedly told not to do the autopsy at all.
She just doesn't feel strong in this season, like she has any kind of control. She just feels a bit like she's going through the motions until we can replace her with Reyes.
Yeah, and it's kind of odd how they will actually sort of split the difference, given that Gillian Anderson isn't leaving the series at the end of the season.
But at the same time, she is leaving the X-Files.
Yeah, so it's very odd how they're handling how they're going to handle the dynamics going forward.
But at the same time, like we've noted with them making Reyes more predominant, it's just basically preparing you for Reyes moving in full time.
Yeah. And it's still, we obviously get into more next season, it's the fact that Reyes still feels, I think Reyes in of herself keeps forcing the question of, it took you this long to get her into this position, when she should have been migrating over to the X-Files a long time ago. You should have had her calling up once a week or something.
Or in the reverse, there have been so many cultist sort of episodes of the X-Files. Why Mulder has never known about her and called on her expertise.
Yeah, I think
she should have been in his Rolodex alongside people like Chuck.
Yes. So, and I think that's the weird dichotomy between her and Doggett, is that we're trying to engage Reyes in easier. Doggett fits more naturally as a abrupt insertion, given they wouldn't have a reason to cross paths before.
And also, Doggett fills the role of Scully as he's been put in there purely because he's not a believer.
Yeah. Whereas Reyes, despite making a lot more effort to make this a lot more natural, throws up so many problems because of what she is.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else for this episode, or shall we go fight the lizard people next time?
Oh, do we actually get to Alone
We
next
do
time?
get to Alone next time.
So what's paired up with it?
Next week is Alone in Essence,
Oh, okay.
and that's the first of a two-parter. So the week after that, we'll do Existence and our season wrap-up, because we'll do a clean break before we start the Lone Gunman.
Okay, sure.
If you'd like to get hold of us in the meantime, our email address is thingsgettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also find us on social media, and please do hook me up if you would like me to present anything at the start of this show, including fan events, zines, any cool art you've got on the go. Just let me know. We're on Twitter and Tumblr at GetStrange42, we're on Mastodon at GetStrange42 at universedon.com, and we're on Facebook, where you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange, an X-Files Rewatch podcast. Additionally, and if you're not sick of my voice right now, I also have a stream on Twitch TV in the name AdverseCamber42. I am live Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 PM GMT and Saturdays at 5 PM GMT. The games I am currently playing are Another Crab's Treasure and Alone in the Dark, the 2024 version. You can also follow AdverseCamber42 on YouTube, Twitter, and Blue Sky if you want to get updates and just be made aware when I'm going to pop on at other times to play anything different.
We have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsgettingstrange, where you can find our Let's Play of the first X-Files game called The X-Files Game, where you can play as Craig Wilmore and die, and shoot some people and die some more.
And find cigarettes in vast, vast warehouses.
But you can also find our reviews of Goblins and Whirlwind by Charles Grant, our review of Ground Zero by Kevin J. Anderson, and our review of Mulder and Scully by Catatonia.
Origins of this podcast name.
Indeed. Our theme music is Vision by Kevin MacLeod. You can find it on Compotech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember,
we just work together.